And I've asked Cleo if she can come up and read a little something before we get started.
Hi everyone, I'm Cleo, I'm an alcoholic. Hi. Steps 8 and 9. The alcoholic is like a tornado roaring his way through the lives of others. Hearts are broken, sweet relationships are dead. Affections have been uprooted. Selfish and inconsiderate habits have kept the home in turmoil. We feel a man is unthinking when he says that sobriety is enough. He is like the farmer who came up out of his cyclone cellar to find his home ruined. To his wife he remarked, "Don't see anything the matter here, Ma. Ain't it grand the wind stopped blowin'?" Yes, there is a long period of reconstruction ahead. We must take the lead. A remorseful mumbling that we are sorry won't fill the bill at all. We ought to sit down with the family and frankly analyze the past as we now see it, being very careful not to criticize them. Their defects may be glaring, but the chances are that our own actions are partly responsible. So we clean house with the family, asking each morning in meditation that our Creator show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. The spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. Chapter 6, Into Action, pages 82 to 83.
Thanks, Cleo.
Thanks, Cleo. All right, please help me welcome our speaker on steps 8 and 9, Elizabeth W. from Philadelphia.
Thanks. Yeah, he's like, we got a short one. Appreciate it. Hi, everybody. My name's Elizabeth. I'm an alcoholic. This has been fun. This has been a lot of fun being here last night and getting to listen to my best friend open this thing up. And I just want to say thank you for having me here. I've been asking all morning. I'm like, who puts these names in the hat? Like, where did that come from? So who's ever responsible for that? Thank you. And it's funny, I went to the flower show, Philadelphia Flower Show, for the first time last weekend. And when my friend had asked me months ago, can we go to this thing? Months ago it sounded like a great idea. And then the day of it comes and I'm like, ugh, you make plans. And when you make them, you're like, oh yeah, that sounds great. And the day it comes, you're like, I just want no parts of this. Even though you're going to have a good time. And so I've had about, 4 or 5 months to spend most of my showers being like, shit, I gotta do this. What am I gonna say? And because I look at this flyer and I'm like, I don't belong here. That's what my head tells me. I'm not qualified. And I got asked to speak on steps 8 and 9. I am qualified because I've made amends and I've had experience in that. And that was, we all had different experiences with different steps, and I'll tell you that any one is my favorite one. Except 6 and 7. I leaned over to Sarah before the meeting and I was like, thank God that's not me. Because I don't know what I have to say. And, oh God, I'm so scared. So if my voice shakes for next 10 minutes, I'll just settle into myself and I'll be okay. But I think with 6 and 7 specifically, I didn't really start to scratch the surface of those things until I was about 3 years sober. And I got sober this time. This is my first time here. It's just my experience. I was a hard nut to crack. And I don't know if anybody else can relate to that, but you can't tell someone that knows everything something because I can't hear you. And I'm listening to you guys. I'm listening to everybody come up here this weekend. And I've really enjoyed every moment of it. I've been present for it, which blows my mind in itself because I remember when I first started coming to Alcoholics Anonymous. By the way, anything I say tonight is going to be as much of a surprise to me as it is to you guys because we're just winging it. I'm like, am I supposed to prepare for these things? Should I be reading my book and taking notes? And I'm like, no. Here we go. And but when I first came here, I remember I would sit in meetings. I've been a member of the Stepping Stones a long time, way longer than my sobriety date, which is September 11, 2018. And I remember I used to go in there and I'm like, I'm kind of a quiet girl, right? I was telling Julie that in the bathroom. I'm like, this isn't my wheelhouse. You know, I'm kind of quiet. I sit and I just kind of like watch what's going on. And I did that for a really long time in AA when I just couldn't stay sober, when I thought alcohol was the problem. And, but I would hear you guys talk and like, I'd go to a speaker meeting and someone would get up here and like, I don't know, it was fine, but like low key, I'm like, this kind of sucks. It's like an episode of Law and Order. Like, it might have a decent plot, but it's like something happens, they catch the guy, and it's like, da-dun, you know, and it's just like the same. It's just like, you know, that's the same thing over and over again. Like, I'm that jerk off that's like looking at I almost said my watch, I don't think I've ever had one, but my phone, and I'm like, all right, buddy, it's like 25 minutes, you're not sober yet, let's go, like, and that's probably where the fundamental fear of getting up here and speaking in front of you guys and being so terrified comes from, because sometimes I sit in this room and I'm like, you're full of shit, because for a long time I came into these rooms and I judged it, and but the point that I was trying to make is somebody would come up and they would share their experience and their strength and their hope, and then you guys would raise your hands to share, and you would go, I could really relate to it when you said A, B, and C. And I'm going, when did they say that? When did that happen? Like, I didn't hear that. Because I sit here and all I can think about is me. All I can think about is, when is this meeting over? What am I doing next? All the problems I have. They're not being honest. They don't drink like I did. Like, that was the big one. Like, they don't drink like I do. And for a long time, I didn't drink like that until I did. I remember landing in my first treatment center when I was like 30 years old. I'm 42 now. Almost 43, as my fiance reminded me of recently. I was like, why would you say that? But I remember sitting in my counselor's office and I was like, I just kind of don't get it. Like, everybody here is like 21 years old or they're like 60 years old, and like I always hung out with the old guys in rehab. And she was like, well, you know, you're just a late bloomer. And because my experience with alcohol kind of looked like this. I was a blackout drinker from the very first one, It's really crazy to think about how young I was. I don't know, 14, 15. I have kids that are that age, a little younger, a little older. I have 3 boys. They're 14, 17, 22. And I look at my kids and I'm like, he's just in there like playing on his Xbox with his little friends. Like, when I was his age, I was like taking acid in the woods with like my girlfriends. And like getting blackout drunk in, you know, the woods, because I was raised in the Poconos. And I was raised in the Poconos just to get a little bit of, you know, the backstory of where I come from. It was funny, I was listening to my friend Tina talk last night that she was raised by 2 maniacs, insane. I had the kind of parents, God bless them, that they got married young. I think that my mom was raised in a really crazy household in Philadelphia. My parents moved us out of Philadelphia when I was a little kid. She didn't want me growing up down there, so she wasn't too happy when I moved there to get sober. But she lives with me now, so I'm like, hi, you're back. And there was like the kind of parents that, like, you know, they got married and they fought so much that they would get divorced, and then they would get married again, and then my mom would like throw her ring out into the woods, and then she'd be out there with like the car headlights on with my dad trying to find it, and it was just really chaotic. And like my friend said, like, now I know that, you know, they just did the best what they could with what they had, because as a parent myself, I was talking to Sarah about this. Like, I look at my kid and, you know, he's 22 and he's bringing his problems to me, which is so amazing, because for the longest time he wanted absolutely nothing to do with me. And I'm like, man, I'm not equipped to handle like these conversations with you. I don't know what to tell you what to do. Like, we're like the same age. Like, I have no experience here. And they have such different lives than I do. Like, I had him when I was 19 years old with, you know, the guy I thought I'd be with for the rest of my life, like straight out of high school. Like, I remember like waiting until I graduated to tell my mom I was pregnant, because for some reason I thought that was better. I waited until she had a couple glasses of wine in her, and I was like, I think I need to go to the hospital. And anyways, everything just, I don't know, it was really crazy. And like, he's talking to me about, he doesn't know which school to pick his master's program from. And I'm like, I flunked my college entrance exams because I stayed up all night doing cocaine, and that was the day I found that I was pregnant with you. Like, I just, like, I can't even, like, I'm like, I can't fix this, but I'm gonna do my best. But, no, like, with, with my mom and dad, like, it was just always crazy, and it was always chaotic, and my dad was always away. He was in the Seafarers Union, he was a merchant marine. So when my mom moved to the Poconos to get us away from my dad, and then he shortly followed her, he wasn't around that much, he was back and forth. And I come from a long line of Irish Catholics that drink just like me. I thought it was normal to go to like a funeral, and it's just like a tailgate party in the parking lot. Like, I just thought that that's how people celebrate the end of life. You know, you get drunk and you fight, and not me, I'm not a fighter, but like all the boys and stuff like that. But I do remember from a very early age what shame felt like, you know. I remember what resentment felt like. My dad suffered from this disease my entire life. I don't think I've really ever seen him draw a sober breath. And my mom, she's just the greatest mom there is. If love was enough, she did the best that she could to take care of the three of us. And at any given time, she can never get the three of us sober at once. So it's like me and my older sister, well, they're both older than me, are, you know, we're doing okay right now. And our little sister, I'm not too sure yet, it kind of changed all the time. So she can never really be completely free of that fear for very long, because it just seems like, you know, when she gets two of us on board, one of us jumps ship. But I remember, like, you know, just things being different. I come from a small town in the Poconos. We have a local paper, and everybody reads it. To this day, right, I should have this is embarrassing, I should have a much better spiritual practice in the morning. I wake up and I make my coffee and I read the obituaries on my local paper. I don't know why I do this, it's fucking weird, but it's what I do every single morning when I wake up, and then I'll look at the little crime blotter to see if I know anybody. And I remember ending up in that part of the paper, my parents did. They had gotten into the big one that had landed into the paper, and I remember going to school the next day, and I remember asking my friend Nicole if she could come over to my house after school, and she told me that her parents said that she wasn't allowed to play with me anymore. And I just remember, like, from such a young age, I don't know where I put those paper towels. I might need them for sweaty hands, or I might cry, but either way, yeah, I know, there. And I just remember that shame, right? Like, I remember being a little kid, and we have absolutely no concept that maybe our lives start like look a little bit different than other people's, maybe until we start to go to school and see like how other people live. And I started to realize around like a very young age that our family might have been like a little bit different. You know, there was a lot of craziness that went on, and there was times where, you know, it wasn't crazy, but more often than not, like if my dad was around, it was. And this isn't my victim impact statement, this is just my experience, is that I remember from a really young age thinking to myself, this is not what I want to be when I grow up. That's not the kind of parent that I'm going to be. And my mom worked so much to be able to just put a roof over our heads. Like, she couldn't be like the involved mom at school. Like, I would see like my parents, like the kids I went to school with, their parents, you know, their moms were like stay-at-home moms, and they would be like the birthday mom and dropping the cupcakes off at school, and you know, being on the PTO and stuff like that. And I just always remember kind of feeling just like a little bit jealous of that. Like, why can't my mom do that? I knew from an early age to like, excuse me. I'm gonna do a throat clearing because I'm nervous. But my boyfriend will say it's because I smoke. And like, to not ask for stuff like field trip money or yearbook money, because I didn't want to make my mom feel bad because I knew that she didn't have it. And so anyway, they had that big blowout, and it ended up in the paper, and that was just kind of like, that just one story kind of is like an illustration of like what it was like to grow up as my dad's daughter. to grow up as my dad's daughter was getting pulled over when I very first got my driver's license and getting stopped by the cops and then looking at my license and seeing my last name and going, oh, you're Tom's kid. Like, it was that small of a town. And being like, yes, I am. And immediately getting my car searched because I'm Tom's kid, you know? And I'm not even getting into any trouble at this point because, like, you know, through all those years, like, I can look back at it now and see that my drinking was very different than everyone else's. Like, I can see that when people were starting to wind down at like 2, 3, 4 a.m., like, I'm just getting going. That's when it starts for me. You know, who we calling, where are we going next, da-da-da-da-da. And someone else had said it, like, I can drink maybe one day a week, but for the next 5, 6 days is all I'm going to think about, and that's what my life looked like. And those are the kind of things that I did until that day that I found out that I was pregnant with my son, that's 22 years old now. And throughout those years, like, you know, I didn't have much contact with my dad. It was like really in and out. He had married this woman that I absolutely hated, and she was my evil stepmom, and I treated her like garbage. She had, you know, all the issues that we come in here with, she had. And now, as an adult, I can see, as a human just like me, that she was dealing with something that was so much bigger than herself. But as a 15, 16, 17-year-old girl, I just thought she was a piece of shit. And if she really loved my brother, she would stop doing what she was doing, because by that time my dad had a baby with her. I was about 14. There's an age difference between us. Like, I remember being 14 years old and finding out that she was pregnant, and as a 14-year-old kid, my first thought is like, oh, they're gonna lose that baby. Like, what 14-year-old kid thinks like that? But that's exactly what happened. He ended up in the foster care system, and I ended up spending years using my black belt of resentment to punish my dad for everything I thought he never did for me. Because that's how I show up, right? Like, I come in here and I hear you guys. It's not my experience necessarily that I had this fundamental belief in a punishing God, because I have no use for God, because I am the center of my universe. And I definitely wouldn't want a punishing God. But if you do something that interferes with me, by all means, I'm going to punish you for the rest of your life. And it's not something that I look at as a problem or a defect of character. It's like a badge of honor. Like, oh, you got me, I'm going to get you. I will never speak to you again. Like, I have a master's in grudge holding. I didn't go to college, but I got that from my mom. So anyways, it's funny, thinking of it now. It's like, people have said things to me my whole entire life as someone who considers themselves to be, like, you know, a smart person, that always just went right over my head. And I remember telling my dad that I was pregnant with my oldest son, and him going, huh, interesting. And I'm like, what? Like, why is that interesting? He was like, I don't know. I never thought you would have kids. You're entirely too selfish. And I was like, what? Like, who are you? Like, what are you even talking about? Like, I had no idea why he would say something like that to me. And, bless you. Anyway, when I had that baby, I had to grow up really fast. You know, I was 19 years old. I was fortunate enough. I had a really good job. I had a car, I had benefits. I had gotten my own place. The relationship didn't work out, and that really sucked. And I started to probably become like more like a weekend warrior type drinker. But like, it talks about the stages of drinking in our book. At that time, I was more probably, maybe I did have a moderate drinking phase. I was able to, you know, just put it down and leave it alone. And then, like, eventually when it would turn into a heavy drinking phase, when I had sufficient enough reason to stop, I could, you know. It wasn't my experience back then that I drank during my pregnancies, but I struggled with not drinking. I remember thinking that, like, oh God, I can't wait to have just one, you know. And I didn't nurse one of my kids for that reason. Because I just wanted to be able to drink like all my friends were, because I was still young. And I remember, if I'm being completely honest about it, having the kids so young, there was moments of time where I felt so overwhelmed by the responsibility of it all that I, like, resented the fact that I didn't get to live out like a young life. You know, like Tina was talking about it last night, like watching your friends like go to college and get jobs and do all this stuff, and you're like, how did you do that? Like, I just couldn't wrap my head around how people did stuff like that because it wasn't my experience. And by the time that I was 29 years old, I had gotten married. You know, I had 2 more kids for my total of 3 that I have now, and I had adopted that little brother that had ended up in foster care. You know, they had so many reunification plans for him to go home, and every single time he did, it just didn't work out. And I think I had tried to adopt him when I was like 24, but I couldn't check all the boxes. But by the time I was like, you know, a little bit older, I could. And I'm 29 years old, and I have a full-time job, and I have a husband, and I have a beautiful house, and I have this life that I created for myself that looks so very different from the one that I tried to get away from. I drive a minivan. It's got those little TVs that flip down in the back, which in like, you know, 2004 or something, that was a big deal. And that thing was great. I would drive it again right now. And it was like my very first car loan. Like, I was so responsible, had a credit score, and I was dropping off, you know, cupcakes at the school. My kid's getting tested for the gifted program, and I'm like the mom manager of his little travel soccer team, and I'm killing it, you know. And I have absolutely no relationship with my dad at this point. Taking my little brother really strained that, and because I just looked down on him. I just looked down on him so bad, and I would use every single chance I got to punish him and remind him of what a piece of shit that I thought he was. While at the same time being resentful and jealous that I watched him try to be a completely different dad to my little brother than he ever was to any of us. I could say a lot of things about him back then, but he always showed up. He was at every track meet that kid ran in. He was at every football game. And it was so weird to be like jealous of those things that you don't want to say out loud, right? Like, who wants to say something like that out loud? And, but today, like, as somebody who has matured a little bit emotionally by going through this process, I can see how now that amazing that was for my little brother to be able to experience something even if I didn't get to. Because that's one of the things that happens when we come into these rooms. Chad, thank you for your talk on 6 and 7. I don't know where you are, but oh, thanks. That was impressed upon me, and it hits on it, you know, in the 12 and 12 as well. I'm not trying to step on your step, but like, this is where we grow up. Because I come in here and I've lived this life where I have people that say things to me that just don't make any sense to me, right? I remember my ex-husband once looked me right in the face and said, "You can't see past your own face." And I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, I get it now. You know, I get it. And man, I didn't even get to touch upon just the fact that I'm just not that person that wakes up every single day and it's like, oh God, thank you for another day sober. I want to be so bad. I'm not knocking it. I'm the person that wakes up and like gets a cup of coffee and reads the obituaries. I don't know why. It's just this weird thing I do. It's the only consistent practice I have. And then I do a Wordle, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I should probably meditate. But what this program has done for me, and something that I'll touch upon this, and there's a reason that I'm saying how incredibly grateful. It's never ever lost on me. Somebody said it, yes, last night. You know, that where'd I go? How?
Batteries.
I broke it.
No, you didn't.
I'm not a yeller. I don't think I could yell. But I'll let you do your thing. And then, so anyways, what I'm saying is, like, what can really get me choked up every single time I think about my experience in Alcoholics Anonymous, and the thing that I am so grateful for at, like, a cellular level is the time that the women in Alcoholics Anonymous have taken and sat down with me and spent their time with me and listened to me and showed me how to grow up. Am I back? Okay. Because if it wasn't for that, like, I wouldn't be standing here today was 6.5 years sober when I never thought I could get like 6 hours or 6 days or 6 months. And I don't really remember what I was talking about, but it's okay. Anyway, being, this self-imposed crisis, I'm crushed by the responsibilities of my beautiful life, and I go out one night for somebody's birthday. I was 29 years old, and there it is. There's the love of my life, and I'm not talking about a human. I'm talking about the thing that changes my perception and makes me feel okay the second I put it in my body. And I remember being like, oh, hello, old friend. I haven't seen you since I was about 19 years old, since I took those college entrance exams. And I remember having the thought, this is a really bad idea. I remember having a very loud voice going, and this isn't a lie. It's not, like, dead honest truth. This is going to change the trajectory of your life if you do this. And it is immediately supplanted by a thought that says, fuck it. And before I know it, 1 year later, I'm 30 years old and I'm sitting in that lady's office going, how did I get here? Why am I the only 30-year-old? And all of a sudden, it takes me another year to lose every single thing that I have worked so hard my entire 20s to grow away from. It's funny how life comes around, because this same woman who had walked me through, I don't know if anybody in this room has ever had to go through, I don't know what it looks like in Delaware, but in Pennsylvania, if you adopt someone in your family, you go through the same exact certifications as a foster parent does, but they call it a kinship program. My brother's my family, he's my kin, that's the program I went through. And I had this amazing social worker that walked me through that process. Her name was Sam, and we used to go out to the bars and drink together, and we would have a good time. And if you would have told me that in 2 years she would be showing up at my house to take my kids, I would have told you you're a liar, because I never saw that coming. I never saw it coming when my mind said, hey, this is a bad idea, and the very next thought said, it doesn't matter, do it anyway. I had no idea that was where I was going to land up. I had no idea that the life I had spent pointing my nose up in the air at my dad and his wife and my sisters, because if they just loved their kids, they wouldn't drink. And then all of a sudden, I'm placed in this position to know exactly what that feels like. And I'll never forget, things got bad real fast. So I'm going to skip through a few years, because we all know what we do. We all know where it goes. And for me, it ended up with me having, whatever you guys call it, law enforcement intervention. Like, that was my surrender at that moment. I was interfered with by the law. And I remember getting into the back of that car, and, your hands are cuffed behind your back. And I remember for that moment, and I didn't stay sober, but I remember thinking, thank God it's over. Thank God it's over. That was the worst run I've ever been on in my whole entire life. The last one was a series of sprees. And I don't know which one was worse, because they both sucked. But it took what it took to get me here. But I remember I was one of those people where they were like, okay, you can make one phone call. And it was like 2 o'clock in the morning by that time. And I didn't have a single person I could call. And so there's not a single person that wouldn't hear from me right now. And I had to be transferred from like this jail to that jail, because I broke the law over there and not where I got picked up. And don't get arrested on 4th of July weekend. Like, you're just there longer. And like, I think I'm going to get out, but I guess if you violate probation, they don't give you bail. Like, I had no idea how any of this stuff worked, and I found out. And I remember just being, I remember laying in that cell and just trying to sleep and being so incredibly sick, the sickest I've ever been in my whole entire life. And I remember them going like, why do you have a visitor? And I'm like, nobody even like knows I'm here. I haven't talked to anybody in so long. Like, who would even be here? My mom's not here. She pulled me here. She was the one who called the cops on me. And I go out into the little place. If you've ever had the unfortunate experience of spending some time in one of those places, the visiting room, it's like there's a pane of probably plexiglass, and there's like 2 phones. And I sat down, and they brought my visitor in, and I looked across from the thing, and it was my dad. And what was really wild, the fact that life just comes full circle, is I remember after that incident that they had with my mom and my dad ended up in the paper and it was this like whole big mess. I remember going to that same exact jail and sitting on the other side of those little phones to visit him. And now he's there to visit me. And I remember in the moment what it felt like. I'm like, oh my God, I'm him. But like, for the first time in my whole entire life, we were kind of able to see eye to eye. Wasn't better than in that moment. Like I had gone through most of my life thinking that I was. And I wasn't any less than, and we were just exactly the same. And he was the first person to make sure that he put money on my books and he showed up. You know, in a weird capacity, but he was there. And I had to go through a lot more pain to get to the inventory that I got to. That a woman who was sitting in this room, who took the time and sat down with me and went through it with me. It was very easy for me to see, you know, if you have the amazing experience to write inventory and to listen to someone else's inventory. That first column, those first few names, those are always, you could fight me on this in the parking lot. I don't fight you, but I will. It's him, it's her, it's mom, it's dad, and every box is checked in the third column because those deep resentments affect every part of myself. And my dad wasn't first on the list. I think he was second or third. But it didn't take a lot of prodding and perception shifting from another person for me to see that we were the same. And what a relief it was to have years melt away of feeling rejected or not good enough or abandoned. I looked at my dad and saw every flaw of his character existed in me. And I had done the same thing to my kids. Because anybody in this room that knows me will tell you that I love my kids more than anything in the world. But when I got out of that one treatment center, I remember I went home and I'm 14, 15, 16 days separated from alcohol. Again, I still think that's the problem. I had dope fiend this lady to let me out the day before Thanksgiving because I had to be home. You know, I have to be home for Thanksgiving. Nobody wanted me there. That's why when I got sober in November 2018, I remember I was in Kensington Detox, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, the guy that was up there and was speaking, was talking about, he had gotten sober around the same time, and he was like, and I didn't want to miss Thanksgiving, and then somebody was like, nobody wants you there, and I'm like, yeah, he's totally right, nobody wants me there. I had no problem spending Thanksgiving alone in rehab, and I was alone because the place had just opened, and I was like the only patient. It was just me. It was me and Carl with a K, which I have to be careful when I say, because I go places and they're like, I know him. He lives on Frankfurt Ave, right? I'm like, I gotta stop dropping this man's name. I didn't see much of Carl with a K, because he wasn't feeling his best. And but we did share a cold Thanksgiving platter out of styrofoam. That's probably one of the best Thanksgivings I've ever had in my life. But back to that inventory and where I'm going with it to get to amends. I really enjoyed what Cleo had read beforehand, where it talks about the road to reconstruction is long. Because I didn't realize up until this point that I really am like a tornado, just going through everybody's life and being like, what's the problem, guys? It wasn't even that bad this time. Like, what's wrong? Like, I'm in the hospital with endocarditis for like 30 days, and I'm like, it's really not that big of a deal. I was only on like a 2-day run. Like, why is everybody mad at me? Like, I can't see past my own face. The funny thing about the road to reconstruction being long is that, like, I don't get to pick what long means. And I'm grateful for the people that taught me that. So anyway, we go through this inventory, and it talks about in our book, years of long-standing feud melts away, you know, and then it comes time for amends. I'm not going to stay in steps 4 and 5 because Alan did a great job, and I go to make amends to my dad, and I'll tell you my story of when I first got sober. It was like hearing an older person talk about like how they had to get to school. I'm like, I had to walk 8 miles barefoot in the snow. Like, I had to take the bus. That was about it. But I was living down in Philadelphia in a recovery house, and my amends had to be scheduled. And I didn't drive, I wasn't allowed to, and I would have to get like a Greyhound bus ticket and figure out how I'm gonna get down to Filbert Street to catch the bus up to the Poconos. It's like a 4-hour bus trip. And I had to put these amends on my schedule. Like, someone taught me that, because the book says like, whenever possible. I'm sorry, I just messed it up out of fear. Whatever. It's not wherever or whenever, because if it's whenever I feel like it. It's wherever possible. So I had to schedule these things in my life. And I went up to the Poconos the one time to make amends to my dad, which like blew my sister's minds, because at this point we're all in different 12-step fellowships, and they cannot figure out for the life of them why I would be making amends to him, right? Because what it says is that we resolutely look for our mistakes. And I had made mistakes in this relationship, right? We had a lot of people here tonight talk about, before me, how I take this one thing, or I take these few things, and I allow that to dictate how I treat somebody for the rest of their life, right? I take this one thing, this one way that you interfered with me, or you threatened my sense of security, and I used to punish you forever because I'm spite. I am everything in myself I would never want my God to be. Thank God you guys told me that I could pick what a conception of God looked like, and I remember I have a very similar one to the speakers before me, and it's just unconditional love, right? Sarah kneeled down on that like gross tile floor in a recovery house and said the 3rd step prayer with me, and I'm like, oh my God, this is gross. Like Chad said, it was all very uncool. Like I'm like, oh God, this is for suckers. Like, and I had no problem with God, but it was all you guys talked about. I'm like, come on, like, move on to something else. And, but anyways, I had made a trip up to the Poconos, and, I'm one of those people where it's like speaking. Like, when I make amends, it does not matter how practiced I become at making amends. It always makes me feel like I'm going to throw up every single time. And I get anxious and I panic. And when I go to like over a 7 about anything, I don't remember I'm in AA, right? If I'm really mad, like, you think I'm using a 10-step? No. I'm probably going to have to make amends to you later because I just pop off. This set of spiritual principles goes right out my, the window. I can't see past my own face. And anyways, I had gone up there to make amends to my dad. And just like I always get scared, I got terrified. Because all of a sudden, he's a big dude. Like, my dad is a scary looking guy. His name is like Tomio. He wears a bandana. He looks like a biker, but he's never ridden on a motorcycle before. And it was funny because I didn't laugh about it when he posted this on Facebook, but I screenshotted it, and it came up in my Time Hop memories yesterday. It was a picture of a John Deere tractor in a parking space at the liquor store up in the Poconos where we lived, that my dad had posted and was like, don't get caught driving your lawnmower to the liquor store, the cops get mad. And I'm like, this is like my dad. It was really funny. I don't know if you've seen what Bob Seger looks like as he got older, but he's like my dad's doppelganger. Just like a big guy with like long gray hair. He wears a bandana. And, but anyway, and I got in front of that man, and all of a sudden I'm 5 years old again, and I can't do it. And I do what you guys, I do my best to do what you guys tell me to, because at this point my life like depended on it. I believed in it this time. Like at the beginning when I was first talking about how like I came in here and I didn't believe any of you guys, like that first type of experience beat me into a state of reasonableness. Like it was very much like a life or death errand for me to do these things. And I got in front of him, and I was texting my friend Anthony at the time, and I'm like, I'm here to make this amends, and I'm so incredibly scared. And he was like, well, just say the prayer. And I'm like, what's the prayer? Because again, I can't remember any of this. And all of a sudden, I'm like a 5-year-old little girl again, standing in front of this big scary dude, and I get afraid and I don't do it. And Tina had said something about this last night, and her friend Marie says it, you know, when it comes to writing inventory and making amends, and basically doing all of the things that we don't want to do because nobody likes this. Like, the book knows we're not going to like it. It says practically nobody likes, you know, this self-searching, this leveling of pride. It sucks. It feels like crap sometimes. I hate it. It's like sometimes, like, my attitude can be so pessimistic. I'll wake up in the morning after I read the obituaries and think to myself that all sobriety has given me is like a crippling sense of self-awareness and like an extra 20 pounds. I'm like, that's it. That's all I got. These are the rewards. But as God would have it, my little brother like randomly decided to get married to this woman. That God, I love her to death. And they had a quick planned wedding. It was right before COVID. It was about a year and a half sober, maybe like a little bit less. And it was down in Florida. And I probably shouldn't have gone because like I didn't have permission to leave the state. And at that time I needed it. And I was like, nobody's gonna know. Like, this is my sober behavior. I don't think I ran that past you at the time. Sorry about that. But I was like, he's getting married. I have to go. Like, I couldn't even afford like the $14 Frontier plane ticket. But I was like, I have to be there. But at the same time, I was like absolutely terrified of it because my sister had rented this Airbnb and me, her, and my dad were all going to be staying in the same house for 3-4 days. And I don't think I've ever slept in the same house with my dad since I was 5 years old. You know, maybe later on, I don't remember it. And, man, I've never witnessed anything like this in my life. I remember calling Ricky when I was down there, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to make amends to him. I can't find a lucid moment. And I remember him saying, it doesn't matter, just do it anyway. And thank God for you guys. Because I knew I couldn't chicken out again. I knew I couldn't get in front of him again and not do it. And again, like, completely setting aside, right, 37 years of mistakes by another person and only looking at mine, that was a tough pill to swallow. But in our book, it says that, like, by the time we approached the man we hated, past tense, because if I have done an honest and thorough inventory and I'm willing to look at my mistakes and something, maybe my attitude has changed just a little bit. You know, maybe I have some willingness. And between Marie and Sarah, and Marie and Sarah, and I'm going back and forth because I'm so scared to make amends to my dad, because I have watched him drink himself from morning to night. You know, I never saw him sleep, I never saw him eat. He gave me a hard time because I wouldn't take my sister's rental car to the liquor store. I'm like, I don't have a driver's license, and technically I'm not supposed to leave Philadelphia. Like, my PO doesn't know I'm here. And it was a really crazy experience. And I'm like, how am I supposed to make amends to somebody that he can't draw a sober breath? And I'm afraid, you know, if I'm just being honest, I'm terrified to do it. And I had reached out to Sarah, you know, I'm so scared, you know, probably just whining like I always am. And she said, and another speaker had touched on it, she was like, well, this is what they mean when they say that, you know, fear is a thief. It steals from us. And just like so many other things that you guys say in Alcoholics Anonymous, like, I get it a little bit, right? But I got to a point where I wasn't afraid anymore to ask you guys clarifying questions, right? When I just don't get something, it's okay to say, like, yo, I don't get it, you know? So I remember saying to her, and I saved it in my phone because I was like, wow, she's a genius. And I was like, okay, like, that sounds good, but what does it mean? And she said, well, look at what fear is about to steal from you. It's about to rob you of an opportunity to make amends to your father. It robs you of an opportunity every time that you're afraid to say hi to the new girl. It robs you of connecting with other people. And I don't know, that was one of those things that kind of just like, I could see past my own face, you know? And in that moment, I realized how important that was. And I had the opportunity to sit down on a beautiful morning in Florida and have, you know, an eye-to-eye conversation with my father and connect with him in a way that we had never done before. And, I sat there and I had a list in my phone of the things that I was wrong for. And, I made a proper amends to him because you guys taught me how to do that. And, man, the freedom that came from that experience was what sold me on Alcoholics Anonymous. That, the first time I sat down with a new girl and I left her house feeling like I was like floating 8 inches off the floor. But like that was it, My ass was on fire just enough to make me willing to listen to this woman who did nothing but give me her time, which was so, I don't know, man. Like I remember when I had Issachar to sponsor me, my friend, I was living in a recovery house, and she didn't tell us who could and couldn't sponsor us, but she wanted to know who our sponsor was because she wanted to make sure they were going out of the book and they weren't doing some, weird new age shit. She wanted us to do it exactly as it's outlined in the book. People do their own thing sometimes, And I remember she said to me, she's really involved in service. So you just want to make sure that she has the availability to sit down with you. And it's never been my experience that she did it. And that's an example to me that I hope for the most of my sobriety, if not all of it, I've kind of been able to follow suit. And so anyways, I had that really amazing experience with being able to make amends to my dad. And did it go out again? No, there it is. Okay, cool. And it was the first time, it was not the first time that I have made amends. I had made amends in previous sobrieties, but when there was an angle, If I make amends to him, my ex-husband at the time, if I make amends to him, because he's in AA too, he's going to see how super sober I am. And he's going to let me come home and I can see my kids, right? The same kids, the story I was telling you is that when I got out of treatment the night before Thanksgiving, I walked in our front door after he drove almost 3 hours to Lancaster to come and pick me up. And I said, I need $20. And he's like, oh man, this again? And I don't know, what my problem is at the time. I just know I gotta go. When my head tells me it's time to go out the door, it's time to go out the door. And I don't know why I thought this would work, right? In hindsight, I'm like, what was I thinking? I need you to give me $20 so I can go to the grocery store and buy tampons. Because for some reason, I thought that would make him uncomfortable. That's not gonna work. If you've been married for a minute, your wife's saying she needs tampons, isn't going to be like, ew, gross, here, $20, go. It's just not. But that was my brilliant idea. And, there's arguing back and forth, and I'm sticking to my story on why I need this. And I remember he held up the $20, and he said, if you take this, I'm going to give it to you. But if you take this money, I want you to look me in the face and tell me it's more important than those kids. And I went, it is. And I walked right out the door. And then the next morning I come back home, because we got to go to Thanksgiving, right? And I act like nothing happened, like ain't it great, wouldn't stop blowing. I was able to, during COVID, make amends to that kid. I thought he was never going to talk to me again. I remember when I got sober and I didn't know how to show up for him. I was told I was just supposed to try. If it was received, it was received. And if it wasn't, it wasn't. I used to text him every single day at 11:11. Because it was easy for me to remember. A little alarm still on my phone to text him. And life coming full circle. I remember I sat on the back porch with him at Murray Hilly's house and I made amends to him for the same things that my dad had done to me. I said, I bet when you moved in with your dad, you had friends that wondered why you didn't live with your mom, because that's not normal, right? And I embarrassed you, and I made you feel shame, and I was wrong. And we had this really amazing time with having this open and honest conversation. And at the end of it, he looked at me, and his dad, who is not one of us, but they're estranged, and he looked at me in the eye and he said, I hope my dad does something like this one day. Really funny story, really quick, because Tina was there. I was running out the door to do a speaking commitment at the Northeast Club down in Frankfurt in Philadelphia, and my kid was home from college for Christmas break. I don't know what I was thinking, but I'm like, yeah, I gotta go do this thing, like, you know, whatever. He doesn't know what we do here. And I was like, do you want to come? And I'm speaking, and I'm terrified, and all of a sudden he's coming with me, and then it turns out he loves AA now. So like we get home from there and he's like, I think I'm going to make amends to me as parents, like the ex-girlfriend's parents. And I'm like, yeah, I really don't think that's a good idea. And it was really funny because like the kid is so ambitious. He's like, he's in the middle of applying for graduate assistant jobs in different universities across the country. And he's like, remember when I was helping you at the coffee bar at the Stepping Stones? And I was like, yeah. He's like, can I put that down as community service? I was like, no. Unfortunately, it would not look good on the resume. So I have my glasses on and I'm really blind. What time is it?
You good?
What do I have till 5?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. I don't want to be the one that, you know, keeps us here. I know you guys want to eat dinner. But, I touched on this real quick with Brad before I got up here because I was like, I'm so scared I'm going to throw up. And he was like, you have experience. I'm like, but you don't understand every embarrassing thing that's ever happened to me, and AA happens to me in Delaware. And every single time, Tim is there. So like the last time I got up here to read like the little 3-step reading and I choked. It sounded like I was going to throw up from the podium, or that time I drove the wrong way down the one-way street in front of your guys' Newport meeting and like run into oncoming traffic with a bunch of new girls in my car. But I had shown up to that Newport meeting the one day and we had just come back from vacation, and I remember, I think Teddy was like, oh, how'd vacation go? And I don't even know how to be the person who's like, oh man, it sucked. It sucked so bad. Because we had, my fiance sitting over there and I had made plans to go on this trip to Myrtle Beach. His mom lives down there and his stepdad. And, it's the first time I don't leave my kids. It's kind of weird that I'm here right now, and like I really thought they would miss me, and they haven't even texted me back. Like it's true when they say having teenage boys is like texting a guy that doesn't like you. Like they're just not interested, but you keep being like, hi, what are you doing? Please love me. But we had just come back from this trip, and like I don't want to be like the trauma dumper. When you go, how was your vacation? I can't really go good because it wasn't. Because what ends up happening is we get down there, and my stepdad is in the hospital because he had COVID. Like we're still in COVID times, but I don't think we're like 6 feet away times. It's all a blur. And when we were down in Myrtle Beach, I think it was the day after we had gotten there, stepdad had passed away. And he was sick, but it was definitely unexpected the way that things went down. And he's down there by no mistake. Like God placed us to be there at that moment so he could take care of his mother. And while we're there, I start to notice that I'm not getting the good night text. So it would be a really cool story to say that from the time that I made that amends to my dad, and through the current moment, that we had developed this like beautiful, loving relationship where we were just besties. But it's not what happened because I'm still dealing with somebody who's an active alcoholic, right? And I live far away, and it's COVID, and but every single night he would text me and say, "Good night, hon, I love you." Right? I remember getting a text from him once he was in the hospital. This is a text that I never want to have to send out, and because of this program, because of you guys, I hope I never have to. Right? It wasn't too long after that amends where he texted me, those late night thoughts. I really wish I would have been a better dad. I'm sorry. So anyway, he texts me every night. Good night, hon, love you. Good night, hon, love you. And like clockwork, it was the only consistent thing he had ever done. And I start noticing that I'm not getting those texts anymore, and I'm reaching out, and I'm not hearing anything back. I'm not hearing anything back. And I'm like, this is weird. What's going on? And he left me a voice memo on my phone. I still have it. And I said, hey, hon, I had a stroke. I'm in the hospital. So we're down there and we're dealing with, that's a family emergency, and I have to fly home and deal with this one. And all of a sudden, I'm placed in a position to be a primary caretaker to someone who never took care of me, right? And it's crazy. The funny thing about staying sober is you think you're rid of all of this stuff, and then it's going to smack you in the face, right? And all of a sudden, I'm resentful again, and I just can't figure out why. And thank God for the women in this program that told me to reach out to people who have experience with things that I'm going through. So I made some of those phone calls. Because I'm sitting there hand feeding somebody mac and cheese who, like, for the most of my life, didn't care if my mom was able to put food on the table. Anyway, he had that stroke, and then he kept having them. And it was a whirlwind of a 2-week time. And he ultimately ended up in hospice, which was a really wild experience. And it's crazy what we do for other people, and they think it's no big deal, right? Like the man that sits in this room right now that showed up for me today has no idea that what really cemented it for me with him was that he came down to the hospital and sat on a sidewalk while me and my brother hid from my crazy fucking aunts who were literally fighting over my dying dad. There was a dog in the room. It was a wild time. And you can call anything a service dog. It's like a pit bull. But anyways. And he just sat there. He was just there. He showed up. He's really, really good at showing off. I love him for that. And we had gone down to get breakfast the next morning, and as hospice people say the dying do, they wait until you leave the room. And the second that we got downstairs, my phone rang, and they said he just left. And that was hard. I don't know if grief is a weird thing. So it's like we almost kind of know what it looks like to grieve a very close relationship. But when you are grieving the estranged relationship, it's a weird world to navigate. But I remember, I had the opportunity to show up and take care of him because it made my brother's life easier. I got to be the one who my biggest fear when all that was happening was, how am I going to tell Tyler? That was my only concern, was how is my little brother going to handle this? He would be okay. And I remember right before my dad died, I was in the hospice room with him by myself, and they put a speaker there so that there's music on, which I think is really cool. And Maggie May by Rod Stewart started playing, and which is my mom's favorite song. And I was like, that's what you get. So he actually died he died on October 13th, so he made it one day past my mom's birthday. I really thought he was going to go on the 12th just to spite her. And but something different happens in the room when someone is dying. Not to be morbid, but I looked at that man, and I have never in my life, because with amends comes a lot of forgiveness, right? I didn't really get to touch on that, but it's such an important part. My friend Rick talks about it. Amend or forgive. Amend or forgive. And I remember, Rod Stewart's on, and I'm looking at my dad, who's always been this big, strong, scary dude, and it's just not. And I remember saying out loud to him, I said, I'm not mad anymore. I'm not mad, it's okay. And the freedom that came from what ultimate forgiveness looks like, because he's done some shit, was probably one of the most powerful experiences that I have had. I've had a lot of cool experiences with amends. I never really want to go too haywire. I've had people that are absolutely not, but no one's hit me. And that would not have been possible if another woman didn't sit down with me and walk me through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm really, really grateful for that. And that's why.
for being here, and we'll see you when you come back at 7.